The grid clearing for round 7 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship here at Snetterton. Josh Cook and Aidan Moffat gambling on hard tyres on this day of changeable weather. So many possibilities and permutations lie ahead. Guiding us through it all, commentators Tim Harvey and David Atlas.
A green flag is waved to release the cars then onto the final formation lap. A last chance to have a look at where the grip is, where the damp patches are, and to try to get some warmth into the Goodyear rubber, ready for round 7 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. It is Jake Hill starting on pole position. We've got to factor in these 3 different compounds of tyre. We've got to factor in as well the differing levels of hybrid, and the fact that there are people out of position after a bad qualifying yesterday, and the fact that it's the longest lap, and therefore the hybrid allocation is going to have quite an effect around here, more so than it was on the Brands Indy circuit, the shortest lap on the calendar that we were at last time out. The field then weaving its way down towards Riches, everybody trying to get warmth into the tyres. Jake Hill's qualifying effort yesterday was a fantastic job done across all the elements of qualifying, Q1, Q2, Q3. To take pole position for the 3rd time in his career, Jake Hill on pole position, Ash Sutton with him at the front of the grid. Adam Morgan, a really good effort to be 3rd ahead of Dan Camish 4th, and then Bobby Thompson's fairy tale return to the championship put him into the quick 6. He was 5th ahead of Josh Cook, who had that big slide at the S's at the end of the session. On the 4th row, Andrew Watson and Rob Huff, the 2 teammates together, ahead of Colin Turkington and then Dan Rowbottom. Next up will be Chris Smiley and Ronan Pearson, ahead of Tom Ingram, who really struggled to make that Hyundai come alive yesterday, but he did outpace Tom Chilton. Aaron Taylor-Smith is on the 8th row of the grid with his teammate Mikey Doble alongside. Aidan Moffat on the hard tyre is on the 9th row. Alongside him is Scott Sumpton, and then it's Daryl De Leon, newcomer to truck racing and had a win last week. Sam Osborne back in the touring car. 20th and 21st, Nick Halstead to round out the grid.
Interestingly, this is actually the first time in his BTCC career that Adam Morgan has qualified in the top 3 at 2 successive meetings. He's never been the best qualifier, he won't mind me saying that, I'm sure, but he's right up there.
The 5-second board is displayed, and we are ready then for the first touring car race of the day. It is round 7 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. It is go, and a great start by Jake Hill as expected, but Ash Sutton out-drags Adam Morgan, which was absolutely crucial. Look at the purple BMW with Bobby Thompson on the outside line, because the Bobster has made a really good getaway as well, and he goes 3rd, going down towards Riches ahead of Morgan. Then it's Camish, and then you've got the first of the Toyotas going through. So a good getaway by Andrew Watson, mixing it as they head up towards the hairpin for the first time, but Jake Hill a couple of lengths clear already, and that drone shot shows you the different colours of the tarmac, where it's dry, where it's wet, where it's wetter.
Well, you'd expect Ash Sutton in the front-wheel drive car to attack Jake Hill really hard at the start of the race as the BMWs tried to get their tyres up to temperature, but Jake has absolutely scorched through the first 2 corners. But what a dream start for Bobby Thompson. He actually passed Adam Morgan straight off the line up to 3rd place.
It's like he's never been away, isn't it, as the cars now come out of Agostini for the first time. So Jake Hill leads, and he is trying to get away as expected from the rest of them. Sutton 2nd, Thompson is 3rd, Morgan is 4th, Camish in 5th as they turn their way now up through the infield, out of Hamilton towards Oggies, then up towards Williams and onto Bentley Straight as there Tom Ingram comes up to attack Chris Smiley. So the 2 of them running together. Chris Smiley in the Cupra from Restart Racing, the Hyundai of Team Bristol Street Motors for Tingram, who had a really bad day yesterday, and he's got to try to rebuild the weekend. Onto Bentley Straight for the first time, as he was in qualifying. Jake Hill is to the 4.
And Josh Cook has only lost 1 place so far, which is remarkable actually, and he's got through the first few corners absolutely fine as we go on board with Turkington behind Cook. So we might see some... Oh look, there's the first slide. The first slide straight in front of us on that cold rear hard tyre for Cookie, coming out of the Nelson corner and through went Turkington.
And Smiley and Ingram, so Cook goes backwards, and now Rob Huff up behind him as the cars turn their way out of Coram, drop down then towards the end of lap 1. Jake Hill will lead at the end of it. But yes, we've got Josh Cook then proving it's difficult on the hard tyre. Aidan Moffat's further back as a big effort is made on the inside line by Dan Rowbottom as they head up towards the line. But at the end of lap 1, Hill to Sutton is 8/10 of a second. Look at this, side by side, Huff versus Rowbottom, absolutely level as they come across the line. Past the pits they go, down towards Riches on the inside line. Just is Huff. That was on board with Aaron Taylor-Smith, and Smith will get ahead of Rowbottom as well on the inside line. So Aaron Taylor-Smith, elbows out, I'm coming through.
Yeah, that was Josh Cook has really fallen back now. He's come across the line in 10th. He was struggling at the end of the lap, wasn't he? There was some contact there. I'm not sure who that was, but there was a little bit of contact. Might have been Moffat.
Okay, and in the background, I thought we had a rather slow Tom Chilton, because he has fallen a long way back from 14th on the grid to 17th and was going slow out of the hairpin. Here's the replay. This is on board with Chilton. Contact. That was possibly what you saw. And look, he's on the outside line. And then did the car almost get tipped up?
It was a second hit. Yeah.
So Chilton's in grief. That's Ingram getting himself back ahead of Chris Smiley. So those two currently are arguing over 8th and 9th places. Smiley going really well in the top 10, which is great to see for that real underdog team.
Yeah, and he's had a great weekend actually, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And really good to see Chris Smiley getting towards the sharp end of the touring car grid, and that is Moffat creeping back with left front damage and a puncture.
Okay, so left front possibly getting into Chilton, two things connected, as though that's the two parts of the story maybe put together. In the meantime, Josh Cook soldiers on, trying to keep that car as high up the order as he can. And driver in the background, one spins, one of the Napa Fords up the escape road. So there's been another sort out coming down towards the S's, and it was Scott Sumpton that went around. It was Sam Osborne, I suspect, off in avoidance.
Yeah, I think that was the two that came together on the brakes into Brundle, the left hand at the end of the Bentley Straight. Up front though, Jake Hill has really got his foot down. He's a 1.7 second lead over Ash Sutton. He has used some of his hybrid to build that lead already, but will we get a safety car if Sutton's car can't move on its own?
Very possibly. He's trying to get it going, and it's gone through that sort of 30-second cycle, power down, power up again. Now there, look, Tom Chilton carrying on, but he's clearly in strife. He's on that medium time. Nick Halstead behind him is on the soft, but Chilton down in 17th place, having fallen away on the early laps. Hill to Sutton, 1.7 seconds. Jake looking mighty up front at the moment. The best of those on the mediums is Rob Huff, who is in 11th. Cook 10th ahead of him on the hards, but it's a top 9 lockout of those on the soft, and Aidan Moffat with a punctured tyre is heading for the pit lane. He was pretty grumpy at the end of Brands Hatch after the turbo pipe came off on the way to the grid and came off again in the race. I don't think his demeanour is going to be a very joyous one after that.
No, I mean, he was the only other car apart from teammate Josh Cook to start on the hard tyre, and you're a bit of a mobile chicane when you're trying to get heat into the tyres the first few laps and everyone else is quicker, and sometimes contact is a result of that. I'm not saying that was the cause of it, but you are a bit of a mobile chicane when you're on the slower tyre.
Turkington then on to Bentley Straight, and he's looking at the back of fellow Northern Irish driver Andrew Watson in the Toyota. So that's 6th and 7th. Turkington's 7th at the moment, although Andrew Watson has dropped a long way back from Dan Camish ahead, hasn't he? And we're only on lap number 3. Down to the S's, those two together. You could argue that Andrew Watson's defence is costing him time against those ahead, but it's quite a gap.
It's a big gap. These ones further back, certainly Colin Turkington would have quite welcomed the safety car, I think.
Not yet, if at all, for Colin Turkington as the field turns out of Coram. Behind Turks, it is Tom Ingram then, up into 8th, having started 13th, so good progress being made. There's a big lock-up by Turkington there, coming down towards turn 12.
Yeah, that's an indicator that the tyres are a little bit cold still, isn't it?
Indeed so, and a replay here from onboard Josh Cook's car. That was Huffy going by at his home circuit, which he's not raced for 20 years, and Josh Cook
and Huff on the medium tyre, so tyre advantage. And you could see just through the corner on the apex just how much more mechanical grip Huff had. He had carried so much more speed through the Nelson corner just after he went past, and that's just a tyre advantage.
Ingram on the outside of Turkington at the hairpin. It didn't work, but the Hyundai looks like a different car today than yesterday. It's got a lot more pace. Yesterday, Tom really struggled in qualifying and said that was all he could get out of it, but it's a good race car, seemingly.
Well, that was in the wet yesterday with not much hybrid. Now in the dry, albeit not with many laps of hybrid, but on an equal footing, the car looks quick.
Yeah, he's got 3 laps of hybrid use. Colin Turkington ahead has got 2 laps of hybrid use, and they are chasing after Andrew Watson. So 6th, 7th and 8th come through. Aidan Moffat, by the way, back into the race after that pit stop. And you look back from Turkington's BMW, that's Tom Ingram behind us, the 2022 champion. up behind multiple champion Colin Turkington. And now look, because Turks is having to defend, Andrew Watson is gapping them. The Toyota getting away slightly in that 6th place. It is Hill, Sutton, Thompson, Morgan, Camish ahead of him. That's the top 5. Watson is 6th.
Yeah, and all the top 9 cars on that advantageous soft tyre.
But they can only use it the once, so it'll all change in races 2 and 3. And the weather forecast is supposedly going to improve as the day goes on as well. So maybe we've done with the rain now, as you again look back from Turkington's BMW. Ingram next in the queue. Up front though, Jake Hill, 2.4 seconds to the good. An absolutely storming drive. It was a tough Brands Hatch weekend. He's bounced back in style here.
Well, all big lock-up once again there, just in front. Yeah, I mentioned just in the pre-race, pre-build-up, you know, how if a driver clicks at the circuit, like Ingram did at Donington, like Turkington at Brands, like it appears Jake Hill is so far this weekend, they've just got an advantage. And Hill was due a bounce back after Brands, which wasn't great. How close do you want to get? Welcome to touring cars. If you've not watched it before, that's completely normal. And once again, Ingram tries to go to the outside and cut back, but the rear-wheel drive advantage off the hairpin is enough for Colin Turkington to stay ahead coming out of the Wilson hairpin.
Bobby Thompson in 3rd place is being given the driving standards flag, so he's got to be careful about exceeding track limits. The more you do it, the more draconian the penalties come. It goes from a warning to a time penalty, so Thompson needs to be careful, and so also does Chris Smiley, who is now being added to that list of people under the watchful gaze of race control. Right, as Watson gets away from Turkington, he is having to make the BMW very wide indeed. In 7th place to keep Ingram at bay, who has a proper dive to the outside line. Is he going to be able to go all the way around the outside? He's going to try it. If there is a little bit more grip on the outside as there was earlier on in the day, it might work. Now the road is drier. It doesn't really pay off for him, but he tries to get the undercut onto the straight. Great battle between the two.
Yeah, the big grip advantage for Ingram, definitely. He really is driving all over the road wherever he wants to go, and he's clearly through.
Fantastic. So Ingram gains a place. That puts him 7th. Remember, he's trying to rebuild the early season after that puncture at Brands dropped him out of the points. In the meantime, this is for 2nd place. Bobby Thompson is closing up onto Ash Sutton. So down they come towards turn 12. The Ford falling away from Jake Hill's BMW, but Bobby Thompson, in that very smart, new to the championship purple WSR run BMW, comes up towards the line, and he is absolutely flying. Now, the last lap of Sutton was a personal best of 57.3. That lap just done slightly slower, and Thompson took 6/10 out of him, and he's gone through on the inside line. Job done. So now the BMW, with more hybrid available, admittedly, is flying, and Ash Sutton loses a place.
And Sutton didn't put up much of a fight about that one either. But this is absolutely fantastic for Bobby Thompson. I am so impressed.
Not only that, he's lapping quicker than the leader. So Bobby Thompson, this was the move, and Tim was absolutely right. Ash Sutton knew the BMW was quicker and knew which battles to pick, so he lets the BM go by. Thompson not really in the championship hunt. Darryl De Leon's had a spin coming out of Riches, and that was Sam Osborne almost getting caught up in it in avoidance. Darryl flips the car out of harm's way, one hopes, but he's a long way off in the weeds now as he tries to tractor his way back onto the circuit, but he's out of everybody's way. He will rejoin, so the race doesn't need to be interrupted, and this was how it all happened.
Got wide halfway through the corner, lost the rear, ended up spinning back onto the track and giving Sam Osborne a very anxious moment as he came round the corner. There he is. Sam Osborne was wide himself, almost followed the line and managed to take avoiding action. That was too quick probably to have seen any yellow flags, but I can't give enough credit to Bobby Thompson. This is an absolutely incredible comeback to the BTCC.
And he is on this lap not quite as quick as Jake Hill. Maybe the message has got through to Jake to say Bobby's up to 2nd, just have another push for a lap, stretch the margin if you can. It was already 2.8 seconds, but Bobby Thompson pressing on, seeing what he can do to bring down that gap. He has an extra lap of hybrid use as a starting point, and he still has one extra lap over Jake Hill, given what they've used thus far. In the meantime, Adam Morgan, who is in 4th place, might not be for long. Dan Camish, 5th, right on his tail. Rear-wheel drive BMW, front-wheel drive Ford Focus. Over the timing line they come, and Morgan having to think about defending that inside line. Look down towards Riches. Camish on the outside line, tries to level, but he can't do it.
Yeah, Morgan was using his hybrid there to defend, whether he'll use it around the rest of the lap. Camish trying to cut back again. This is going to be a battle throughout this lap. Be interested to see who used the hybrid. Remember to look for the flashing blue light in the rear window.
So Morgan hangs on to the place, but now Camish dives for the inside into turn 3. There's room on the inside, but he doesn't force the issue. Adam Morgan stays ahead, but he goes a little bit wide. Who's got the best drive off the corner? It is the BMW, and therefore Morgan, squeezing Camish a little bit, hangs onto the place. There's no gap on the inside for Dan Cam this time. The Morganator keeping him at bay. Out of Agostini, back on the power. And again, as they squabble, so they drop back a little bit from Sutton ahead in 3rd place. And does that give Andrew Watson a lifeline? He's looking a bit nearer.
He's looking a bit nearer. This battle needs to be resolved fairly quickly, or definitely Andrew Watson will get a chance to close back up on them. Let's see what the difference is down the straight.
So through they turn, and up front, Jake Hill to Bobby Thompson is now 2.9 seconds. And Hill is still the quicker in the sectors. There he is, looking good for a win. Behind, Thompson is 2nd and Sutton is 3rd, thinking points. And then 4th and 5th, Morgan or Camish to come into view first. Well, kind of both of them together, but it's just the BMW ahead.
But I know Camish is using his hybrid this lap. I've seen the blue indicator on our timing screen flash up. Maybe he'll use it on the exit of the final corner. That's the most effective place to use it, because it's a long uphill section from the final corner up to the start-finish line.
So Camish on the tail of Morgan as they come off turn 12 up towards the line now. Aidan Moffat, incidentally, is a lap down after that puncture of the pit stop, so he's in last place and will be really frustrated. Camish, though, is on the attack again. He tried this a lap ago. This time he's done it. He goes by. Camish 4th as they break the timing beam, and Andrew Watson behind, lapping a little bit quicker. So the Toyota possibly to get onto the back of the BMW. Andrew Watson was saying after qualifying yesterday that he had to lift under a yellow flag, triggered by an Adam Morgan spin. He aborted his quick lap because of it, and in the end, Adam bumped him out of the quick 6. So he'd quite like to put one over on Adam Morgan by the end of this race.
Yeah, and that was an example of just how powerful the hybrid is, because that was a straight push to pass, wasn't it, up the straight?
Getting a replay of Tom Ingram still on the attack as well. Taylor-Smith, Ronan Pearson going through, moving himself up the order. Driving standards flag now for Tom Chilton. Replay of Mikey Doble to the outside of Josh Cook. Doble round the outside, and Cook on the harder tyre down in now 15th place.
Yeah, he's just trying to survive this race, isn't he? There's no way he was expecting to make too much of the race, but probably would have hoped to have stayed a little higher up in this race, but he's just going to have to work on race 2. He knows that the top 10 in this race will have to start on the hard tyre for race 2 if it's dry.
The hardest available, yeah. So Josh Cook, as you say, damage limitation and falling down and down the order, but he's got rid of that tyre then, the medium and the soft, the quicker options for the rest of the day. Meantime, here you can see Colin Turkington coming under attack. Jake Hill, though, is well clear in the lead of the race. It was 2.3 seconds last time. He's done the fastest lap. In fairness, though, Bobby Thompson was a chunk quicker on the last lap. They've got 3 laps of hybrid use available. Jake's dad, Simon, there is the camera watching on nervously. To the eye, the gap is a little bit less. And a mechanical warning flag for Chris Smiley. Now, we had a flurry of those at Brands Hatch for flapping bodywork. I've not seen anything coming off Chris's car. We'll have to have a look. Jake Hill goes through, and the gap is down to 1.8 seconds, and that's why the black and orange is being waved. The door is flapping by the look of it, or the window is flapping at least. Look on the left-hand side of the car. Treble 2, the black Cupra of Chris Smiley goes through, but it's either the window and or the door flapping on the left-hand side. And of course, it's a right-hand drive car. He can't attack it. Andrew Watson up the inside there, goes ahead of Morgan. That puts Watson up into 5th.
Yeah, Morgan is definitely slipping back a little bit, isn't he? That because Watson was a little chunk behind. He's closed that gap, and as you mentioned before that, the gap at the front is closing as well.
This was the move from Andrew Watson. That's a proper touring car dive, isn't it? Up the inside. Andrew, after many years of GT racing, came to touring cars last year, but he's gone through, and Adam Morgan's BMW wilting a little bit, it seems, as the race goes on. Up front, 1.8 seconds between the top 2. In the first sector, it is advantage Jake Hill once again. We're on lap 9 out of the 12. There is Thompson in 2nd place. First time he's raced the BMW, first time he's raced a rear-wheel drive touring car. He's got experience of other rear-wheel drive machinery, but not in the BTCC. Ash Sutton is third, thinking about banking points. Camish fourth, Watson fifth, Morgan is now sixth, and Chris Smiley pressing on for the moment, although that meatball flag is going to have to be waved at him again when he comes across the line. Massive frustration for Smiley in 10th place.
Yeah. This is Smiley's door, and of course it's the opposite side to the driver's side. As long as he can hold it with his spare hand, he's going to have to pit to have that looked at, which is a shame because he's driven really well in this race. Back up at the front, Jake Hill. The gap, in actual fact, on the end last lap was 1.8 seconds, although Bobby Thompson was half a second quicker, but that was using the hybrid. On this lap, Hill is using the hybrid, and I'll look at the lap times. It was a 57.0 for Hill and a 57.7. So it just shows the difference of the hybrid is making. It's about half to 7/10 of a second a lap if you use it. And I think, in all honesty, Jake Hill has got this job done. As my friend Martin Wills, Jeanette Race, would say, the meat is in the freezer. He's just got to bring it home.
So Jake Hill leads the way. Bobby Thompson on target anyway for his best touring car finish of the second place. And Ash Sutton just thinking points. He'll have a bit more hybrid available for the next race. There is Chris Smiley in. Lots of sticky tape applied, door slam shut, he'll go back out, but huge frustration. Speedworks felt it for the same principle with the meatball flag, bringing cars into the pit lane at Brands Hatch, and the Restart Racing team will be just as frustrated here. Now, what's going on for Adam Morgan? He's fallen back into the clutches of Tom Ingram. That is a BMW that really is struggling as the race goes on. Yeah,
we had problems for the BMWs in race 1 at Donington, didn't they, with wearing their rear tyres. They thought they got over that. Not sure if he mentioned it, but Ash Sutton's had a black and white warning flag. That will be for track limits as well. But with only a couple of laps to go, he should be able to watch it. That's where they are transgressing on the exit of Williams.
And Dan Camish all of a sudden has done the absolute best in the first sector. There he is in fourth place. Dan Cam down to the S's. His next target is Ash Sutton. Now he's got a lot of real estate to make up, but that's not to suggest that he won't try. Through fifth goes Watson, and this is the battle for sixth place now. Morgan versus Ingram. If Ingram can get into the top six from 13th on the grid, with only 3 laps of hybrid, that would be a good recovery.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the dry pace of that Hyundai, is there? It's absolutely flying back to where we expect it to be. It just wasn't hooked up in the wet for whatever reason. Look at the closing speed. Ingram is absolutely flying at the moment against a limping Morgan, really, with, I think, rear tyre issues.
Andrew Watson adds his name to the list of those getting the driving standards flag. We are now on to lap 11, so 2 to go as Ingram has a look on the inside, down towards Riches, through he goes. Made that look easy, but the Hyundai dancing up the inside line goes by the BMW, and Ingram continues to push. He might be able to get up with Watson by the end, given the pace that that car has. Now released from behind the BMW. We know that Ingram on a charge is well worth watching, and this was how the move looked from the drone. The two of them come across the line. There's the gap on the inside, and Ingram straight past.
Yeah, it's not even a dive on the brakes, is it? If you're using hybrid and the car in front isn't, it's a push to pass.
Great shots from the drone here at Snetterton this weekend, looking down on the track as you see there. Jake Hill ahead of Bobby Thompson. The gap's gone up again, 3.2 seconds. So, know your place, Bobby, thinks Jake. I'm going to win this race. I'm the one that wants the points in the championship. You're the late arrival. They're more important for me. Laser Tools team looks on as there in second place is Bobby Thompson. In third behind, Ash Sutton. The gap down to 2.1. Last time, Camish did a personal best lap and was quicker than everybody ahead of him.
Yeah, well, Sutton hasn't used his lap of hybrid. He only had 1 lap of hybrid and he hasn't used it. Camish is using it on this lap and obviously the last lap, but on the last lap, Sutton will have it as well.
Indeed so, and he might just be able to exploit it to at least stay ahead. Of course, when you have a limited amount, drivers will try and use it towards the end of the race, because if there is a late race safety car, you need something for the restart rather than burning it all at the start of the race. Dan Rowbottom, in the meantime, is up with Rob Huff. This is for 9th place. We saw Robo get past the door flapping Chris Smiley earlier on in the replay. Now he's all over the back of Huffy for ninth spot. Toyota versus Ford, the Corolla ahead of the Focus. Rob Huff on his home circuit, and he, remember, is the best of those on the medium tyre. Rowbottom is on the soft. The leaders have just gone on to the last lap with a gap at 2.6 seconds, but Robo now tries to work out where he's going to make a move against the Toyota as they drop down to turn 12. Huff clips the curb up towards the line, and we're on the last lap then of race 1 here as Nick Halstead has just made a pit stop and rejoined. That's the leader, Jake Hill, quickest across qualifying, and he's dominated the race as well.
Yeah, and he's got 2 laps left of hybrid that he hasn't even used of his 4. Such has been his dominance. Great to see. He's really dominated. Bounced back from Brands Hatch, a great drive and a great qualifying yesterday. But the man that has impressed me by far and away, the best out of this race so far is Bobby Thompson. What a fantastic performance.
And he's closing to the eye a little bit on this last lap. But Jake Hill, whose last win was at Brands last year, at the end of the season, is on target for career win number 13. Bobby Thompson yet to win in the championship, but second place would be his best ever finish. And behind in third, it is still Ash Sutton. But look how much closer Camish is now. The gap was 1.5 seconds coming onto this last lap. It's still going to be a Herculean effort if Camish gets up and past Sutton, but he's going to be close near the end, no question about it. In the background, 5th is Watson, 6th Ingram, 7th Morgan, then it's Turkington, Huff and Rowbottom to round out the top 10 as they come down towards the S's, Brundle and Nelson for the last time. And there in the background is that Huff Rowbottom fight that's going to go all the way to the wire. Jake Hill then having absolutely annihilated the opposition in this race. He's not put a wheel wrong. Fabulous drive. He comes then now out of Coram. 1 more corner to go, and then that uphill rise towards the timing line, towards the checkered flag, and towards win number 13. It is going to be a BMW 1-2. Jake Hill wins race 1 of the day at Snetterton, and a great drive it was as well. Bobby Thompson, a career best in 2nd place. Ash Sutton comes across the line 3rd ahead of Camish. In 5th place it is going to be Watson, and then for 6th over the line Ingram. Then should be Adam Morgan. It is. Turkington is next, and Huff and Rowbottom are nose to tail, but Huff's going to hang on in there.
And on the very last lap, Ingram took fastest lap on the last lap, snatching that point away from Jake Hill, but proving just how much pace there is in that Hyundai. Ingram is not over yet for the day.
Oh, absolutely not. And Jake Hill then, a really impressive race win, and Bobby Thompson taking 2nd place. The gap at the end was 1.9 seconds, but I think Jake had just been able to measure that gap and knew exactly what he was doing to bring it home. We've said it before, you only have to win by 1,000th of a second as long as you win, but you can't. Yes, we're looking at all the celebrations at WSR surrounding Jake Hill and his family and his team, but you can't not get caught up in the feel-good story of Bobby Thompson, because even though we've been looking at him over the course of the weekend and he's had this great pace in the car and so forth, everything seemed to come together so late. Hardly ideal preparation. It was a rather nervous Bobby here on Friday, still questioning whether it was all going to gel, all come together. Well, it has. He's on track, and he's repaid that faith that not just WSR, but so many other people in the paddock have had it in for season after season, whether it's been a Matt Neal or a Barry Ploughman or people that have worked with him, people that have rated him for season after season. Now he's proved why. Yeah,
and the thing is, he's always been the underdog.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the teams he's driven for, but you're in not front-running machinery. You're outperforming the car, but nobody really knows how good you are.
Yeah.
He's now in a front-running car, and he's immediately proved that he's a potential race and championship winner against top quality competition.
No question about it. Round 7 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship secured by Jake Hill ahead of WSR teammate Bobby Thompson. Ash Sutton taking 3rd ahead of Dan Camish and then Andrew Watson, with Tom Ingram 6th, Adam Morgan 7th, and the top 10 completed by Colin Turkington, Rob Huff and Dan Rowbottom. Ronan Pearson, winner at Brands last time out, 11th. Yet another independence win goes the way of Aaron Taylor-Smith ahead of his teammate Mikey Doble. Josh Cook 14th on the hard tyre ahead of Tom Chilton, rounding out the scorers. Then it's Sam Osborne from the spinning Darryl De Leon. Chris Smiley 18th after his enforced pit stop. Scott Sumpton next, and Nick Halstead in 20th, with Aidan Moffat 21st after having to pit with that punctured tyre early on in the race. So, championship, how does that leave us? 1 race of 3 done. Well, Jake Hill certainly would have benefited from all of that, and of course it's the first points of the year for Bobby Thompson. This is how we look. Ash Sutton is now 9 clear of Colin Turkington. Tom Ingram is 3rd. Jake Hill 4th now from Dan Camish and Josh Cook. Dan Rowbottom's up to 7th, ahead of Aidan Moffat. Adam Morgan is 9th, and the top 10 rounded out by Tom Chilton.
The rain has passed, but the question marks remain. The tyre choice is everything, and there are some gamblers out there for round 8 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. Our commentary team, as ever, Tim Harvey and David Addison.
And this promises to be another of those touring car races with all the ingredients, thanks to the weather, to throw many a surprise. 2 cars on this grid only, for now, are on slick tyres, but it may well be that as they have this sighting lap, more bail for the pit lane at the end of the lap and think, I need to go onto a dry tyre. The grid has set off then on the warming up lap. In this order, Jake Hill is the man on pole position, Bobby Thompson with him at the front, Ash Sutton is 3rd, and Dan Camish starts 4th, ahead of Andrew Watson and Tom Ingram. 7th on the grid, Adam Morgan, then it's Colin Turkington, next Rob Huff, who is going to be on the hard tyre, Dan Rowbottom on wets alongside him, Huff one of the 2 on slicks. Next, Ronan Pearson and Aaron Taylor-Smith, ahead of Mikey Doble and Josh Cook. Then we have Tom Chilton and Sam Osborne, ahead of Darryl De Leon and Chris Smiley, who is the other driver on a slick tyre. He is on the medium. After that, there is Scott Sampson, and Nick Halstead, I think, is missing from the grid. He's not very well, we understand, but Aidan Moffat should be there at the back of the grid. Right, the pit lane is going to get busy, and part of this now is not only going onto the slick tyre, but how quickly you can get the car turned around to be at the front of the queue of those leaving the pit lane.
Absolutely, but they have to put on the tyre that they nominated for this race. So for Ingram, that will be the hard tyre. I'm not sure which of the Napa cars it was that came in, but they will have to put on the tyre they nominated.
It's Ash Sutton, we understand,
so Sutton will also be on the hard tyre.
Right, we're getting ready to go racing then, and Ash Sutton is going to be the first one out because he is first in the queue. I can see that car out of our window. There is Tom Ingram heading down the pit lane behind him. So your champions over the last 2 years then vacate the grid, and I think Colin Turkington is in the pit lane. In fact, yes, you can see how many gaps there are. So there's a whole raft of cars in the pit lane. We, in the meantime, need to concentrate on the track because the lights in a moment will go red. We've had the 5-second board, and then round 8 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship set to go. It is blast off, and a good getaway by Hill. Good start by the Toyota on the inside of Andrew Watson then as they run up towards Riches for the first time. Bobby Thompson not quite so well out of the blocks this time, but it's Jake Hill with a good lead already as they work their way up towards Riches, and now we've got this mass exodus of cars from the pit lane as everybody else battles their way up through Riches, and there's a delay for some leaving the pit lane. Ingram, I think, had stalled, so Sutton has gone, and there's a whole queue behind that were delayed getting out. So there's your leader, Jake Hill. Now remember, all of these, with the exception of Rob Huff, are on the wet tyre. Those that are just joining in for the pit lane are also now on slicks, and their progress is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, I think that Ingram went, but then wasn't sure whether he'd gone at the right time, and I don't think he stalled. I think he just stopped, but he may have stalled, but it held everybody up.
Yeah, because Sutton had gone ahead of him, and there was that delay, so we'll try and unravel that. But meantime, on track, Hill leads the way. Andrew Watson is there in 2nd place. It is in 3rd, Dan Camish. Bobby Thompson is 4th. We know that Turkington pitted. We know that Rowbottom pitted as well. There, look at the back, Huff and Smiley. Those 2 are the leading slick shod cars. We'll see whether they're going to be caught by those from the pit lane.
The good thing is for them, in fact, that the others stopping in front of them opened up a bit of room for them, and they didn't have to start at the back from the pit lane. They've actually got a lot of track position on those guys from the pits, and they've got more temperature in their tyres as well, crucially.
Time penalties. Bobby Thompson and Jake Hill, they're being given a 10-second penalty. Jake Hill, the race leader, Bobby Thompson there in 4th place, are being given 10-second penalties, which I can only assume is for an out-of-position start.
That's the only thing I can think of. They didn't change their tyres on the grid too late. So, yeah, big problem for them. That's the track is the wettest at the back section. Coram, Bomb Hole, that's where it's really wet. That's where the slick guys are going to have to really hang on to the car.
So down they come then for the first time. Jake Hill then in the lead, and he's going to be now told you've got this penalty, and he's got to try and build up a gap of over 10 seconds. Now, this is Josh Cook on the opening lap, battling his way through the traffic.
Yeah, remember he stayed on his wets, and that car working well at the moment, but these wet tyres are going to get chewed up very quickly. Right in the background, you can see Huff and Smiley look right in the background, coming out of the final corner, just as leader Jake Hill is turning into turn 1. So that's the gap.
Yeah. So there goes Huff, there goes Smiley. Look, there's a whole wave behind, which also included Ronan Pearson and Aaron Taylor-Smith. They were the others that came in at the end of that last formation lap. So this is a flying lap. At the end of it, we'll get an idea of a time between those on wets and those on slicks, because it'll be the first proper flying lap of the race. Josh Cook then losing out as he squabbles with Adam Morgan, or is he losing out? He fights back on the inside line down towards Agostini. And for the moment, the wet tyre's still with enough grip, but it's as the race wears on that the question mark's going to come. I've got to say, though, it has suddenly clouded over. It's got cooler all of a sudden. It's got greyer overhead. Wouldn't be surprised if we didn't have another sprinkling of rain.
Well, watch for wipers going on, because that will be the first indication that we get. We'll also be keeping a close eye on the lap times of the slick shod cars, Huff and Smiley being the first ones amongst them, how they compare with the leaders. But don't forget, they'll take them a couple more laps just to get a bit more heat in before they can really lean on them.
Of those that have started from the pit lane, Aaron Taylor-Smith on the soft is charging, so he's already wriggling his way past the other slick shod cars. So it's going to be a really fascinating race, this. But as I say, the race leader Jake Hill on wets and with a 10-second penalty, so he's going to try and build that up in order to consolidate the margin come the end of the race. Bobby Thompson there in the purple BMW, he also has this 10-second penalty. And this is Aaron Taylor-Smith busy trying to get himself up through the traffic then, chasing after the Tom Ingram Hyundai as he comes now onto Bentley Straight. These two are in 16th and 17th places, but you put money on the fact they won't be there for long.
No, but you'd also put money on the soft-tyred car, which is Taylor-Smith, turning its tyres on. In other words, getting the heat on, getting the reaction between tyre and tarmac working quicker than the hard compound tyre. Someone else diving into the pits. Was that Morgan?
I think it may well have been. So Adam Morgan, yes, comes into the pit lane. So that's an interesting one to pit during the race. There is Rob Huff, who is still leading the slick shod class, as it were, chased by Chris Smiley, hard versus medium. Jake Hill's lap, the best so far, was a 2 minutes 10. And when Rob Huff comes across the line now, we know that his lap was a 2:18. So that's the difference.
8 seconds, 8 seconds. But that will reduce every single lap.
Yeah.
But obviously it's got to reduce and get better for the slick shod cars.
And there are more on slicks. Ingram versus Taylor-Smith. They go across the timing line, gaining a place off Adam Morgan. So they're now up to 15th and 16th. Taylor-Smith on that softer, in theory, quicker tyre. Turkington is on the slick tyre now from the pit lane as well. He is next in the queue. And then you've got Rowbottom and Pearson to factor in, as well as Adam Morgan rejoins. So he will fall behind Rowbottom. He will also fall behind Ronan Pearson. That puts Adam Morgan into last place for now.
But also don't forget, if there's a safety car incident, he will close up that gap and he will be then on the back of everybody with the slick tyres on. He's working on the gamble that slick tyres are going to be the quickest, and if he gets a safety car, he'll finish at least the last of the slick shod cars.
Now this battle on track is for third. It's Dan Camish versus Bobby Thompson. We've had confirmation it was a false start penalty, that 10-second penalty for Thompson and for Hill. So Bobby Thompson on track needs to try to get himself up past Camish. He can't do it coming into the S's as they wriggle their way now out of the second element toward the bomb hole. The Ford goes wide, the BMW tries to squirt up the inside. Look, going into bomb hole. It's very, very close between the two. Thompson on the inside, got it up alongside, but Camish with all that grip on the outside line breezes back ahead of him. Great racing.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can get alongside someone on the run to the bomb hole, and normally in the dry that would be job done, but in the wet you can carry more speed round the outside of the bend, and that's exactly what Camish did. And I saw wipers on Bobby Thompson's car. Was that because he was getting spray off the car in front, or was it because it was raining? I think it probably is just because of spray off the car in front.
I'm tempted to agree with that, yes, because there's nobody else really with the wipers on, and out of our window we can't see much rain, if any, falling. Now Jake Hill's advantage over Andrew Watson is 3.7 seconds. Have a look at the start. Look at those two BMWs at the front. They creep a little bit.
Yeah,
they both.
I think that was a reaction from Thompson to Jake Hill moving. He saw Jake move and just instantly moved himself, but definite movement from both BMWs. So they'll be very cross with themselves.
Yes, indeed. So that's why those penalties have come. And right now, 10 seconds would put Jake Hill down to 7th place. But there's a long way to go. And also, of course, as you look here at Ash Sutton, getting all crossed up, coming down to Agostini, you never know what might happen by the end in terms of a safety car. This was Aaron Taylor-Smith going ahead of Tom Ingram. Now, that's been in the post, hasn't it, given that he's on that softer tyre?
Yeah, it's actually taken him a long time to get through. He would have been like to have got through sooner and made more progress up the road, because even though there's a difference of 2 seconds a lap in the dry, it's that initial advantage of tyre heat that he's wanted to take advantage of.
Rob Huff last time a 2:14, so that gap is coming down in terms of the disparity of the lap time. 2 minutes 9 plays 2 minutes 14, so we're down around 5 seconds rather than the original 8. So as Tim was predicting, it will get narrower lap after lap after lap, and we have got 9 laps to go. Now, Camish versus Thompson, they're still at play for 3rd place. Andrew Watson is up the road ahead of them. Josh Cook is there in 5th behind. In 6th is Mikey Doble. 7th is Tom Chilton. Aidan Moffat is 8th from 21st on the grid, or 20th on the grid, because Nick Halstead withdrew, but he was on the 21st rank. Behind him is Sam Osborne, and then 10th is Daryl DeLeon. 11th is Scott Sumton. That's the wet race. And then this is the slick race, headed by Rob Huff, ahead of Chris Smiley. And in the background is Aaron Taylor-Smith, who is flying.
But I tell you what, the wet shot guys are doing a great job of dragging as much water across onto the racing line as they can, because they're all driving offline. You can see how much water they're dragging back onto the racing line. So as opposed to everybody going all around on the same line and drying that out, they're actually spreading the water as much as they can, which is hindering the slick shot cars.
And Ingram's about to make his move on Ash Sutton for 15th place. He's on the inside. He's got the job done before Bombhole. Sutton not able to dive up the inside, but it was the outside where the grit was anyway. Ingram is clear. Ingram is through. Ingram's at 1 further place. And the Hyundai in race 1, remember, looked really racy. He's moved himself onto the tail of, and then ahead of the Ford, he goes wide at Coram, but again, that's looking for grit.
Yeah, looked to be wider, a bit drier there. He's going, no, I think that's deliberate. I think he's deliberately picking out the drier bits of track, isn't he? But it's not often you see Sutton get past in damp conditions on the same tyre.
Aaron Taylor-Smith is now the fastest man on the circuit. So 2 minutes 7, so that's a slick, soft tyre, is now quicker than a wet. So the pendulum is swinging in the favour of these cars on the soft tyre, the slick tyre, forgive me. Now remember that of the slicks, it's hard ahead of medium, ahead of soft. Huff, Smiley, Taylor-Smith. Aaron has still got to catch Smiley, but it is now raining once more. I did mention a lap or two ago that it had clouded over, so a sprinkling of rain comes, and that's going to throw the calculations up into the air, isn't it?
Well, that's disaster for Aaron Taylor-Smith. Immediately at the point where the slick became faster, and him being the only person on that soft tyre, immediately the transfer happened, and with plenty of laps left in the bank, the rain has started. How unlucky is that?
So right now you're looking at the battle between Dan Camish and Bobby Thompson. Remember that ahead of them is Andrew Watson. Now he is falling away from Jake Hill. He's 5.4 seconds back. Hill needs to be 10 seconds clear to win the race, and he's got time in a sense in which to do that, especially now if it starts to rain again and the track comes back to his tyre. Meantime, there is Bobby Thompson, who accelerates his way through Coram, having dropped back a little bit on Dan Camish on this lap. Now it's going to be interesting to see what the lap times are on this slightly damper lap between the slicks and the wets again.
But of course Thompson has that 10-second penalty to be applied as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. So there he is, goes through, and this is the Rob Huff incident at the S's, so that's because it started to get wet again, catching out on slicks.
Yeah, he did exactly the right thing there. He came off the brakes once he realised he'd lost it and straight lined that bit of grass so he didn't spin. So actually not a lot of time left, but an indicator that it's damp there and the rear slicks just don't want to bite into the tarmac.
Right, the last lap by Jake Hill, who incidentally is now 7 seconds clear in the lead, was a 2 minutes 8, which was a personal best lap. Rob Huff has gone across the line on a 2:10. Aaron Taylor-Smith a 2 minutes 7. So it's still, okay, we know that Huff went off the road, but at the moment, Aaron Taylor-Smith's tyres are warm enough to be working. I don't think that rain's really developed.
No, it was perhaps what we call psychological rain, where you see it on the windscreen and immediately back off because you think it's affected the grip, but it really doesn't. But maybe it wasn't enough to dampen the track, but everyone's got wipers on, haven't they, a lot of the time?
So Aaron Taylor-Smith has moved himself up past Chris Smiley and therefore is edging forward to the front of the slick class. He's got to catch Rob Huff, who is still in charge, even with his grassy moment at the S's. We're currently on lap 6 out of 12. The race leading Jake Hill 7 seconds clear of Andrew Watson, but he's got a 10-second penalty. But right now, he could well clear that, given the amount of time left in the race. There's Watson from Camish from Thompson, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. 5th is Josh Cook. And then side by side for 6th, you've got Mikey Doble versus Tom Chilton. Astra on the inside, Hyundai on the outside. Chilton off the road, slithers his way towards tarmac. He's back onto the circuit, but he's been off the road and gained a position there. So notionally, he should give that back, because clearly that was gaining an advantage by being off the track.
Yeah, he came out ahead of where he would have been, didn't he? But the other way of looking at the Aaron Taylor-Smith on the slick situation is that he's effectively 34 seconds behind the leader, because the actual leader is Watson.
So this is what happened to Chilton. So he's on the outside line down to the S's, can't slow the car down, goes onto the grass. Mikey Doble was on his left, and when Tom Chilton comes back on the circuit, he's clear of Mikey Doble.
Yeah, he should definitely give that place back to save for further punishment.
This is it from the outside, and Tom Chilton runs out of road, goes all across the grass, and look at the gap he pulls by doing that. On the one hand, you could say that was brave because he didn't lose it, but yes, that was an advantage by being off the track. That's Ronan Pearson, and he's having a drama at Coram.
Yeah, it's quite damp still on the. That's actually at
Williams.
Yes. Yeah, quite damp on the outside. That we've seen quite a lot of offs there in support races. So Hill's got the gap up to 8.5 seconds on the last one. He's pushing on. He'll be well aware of this time penalty because the team will have told him.
The rain is coming out of our window. Let me assure you, it is raining, and it's pretty heavy rain again. So now it is advantage those that have braved it out on wets. And with Jake Hill's pace right now, he ought to be able to win this race, even with that 10-second penalty, because he is absolutely flying. Aaron Taylor-Smith's fastest lap of 2 minutes 5 may well stand to the end and give him a point. But the track conditions, the weather conditions are changing again, not for the better, as into the pit lane comes Adam Morgan, thinking, why did I change?
Yeah, this is you can't odds the weather. It'll do what it's really wet now. So everyone that went on wets has been absolutely saved. Those that changed to slicks are doomed. Josh Cook did exactly the right thing by staying on the wets. He's in 5th place and has still got his soft option tyre to come from race 3. Should he be so lucky to use it? We might have 3 wet races.
Did think you were getting ahead of yourself a tad there, but yes, that's the plan. Here in the meantime, Huff versus Taylor-Smith. This is for the lead of the slick class. They're slithering around now because these are not the right tyres. Look, this is on board with Aaron Taylor-Smith, and that's not just spray, that's rain as well, although the rain has eased once more on our side of the circuit, but it's given the track a proper soaking. It's wetter, isn't it, on this section heading at the end of Bentley Straight than it is where we are on the start and finish line.
And the thing is, you have some residual heat. They've spent all these laps getting heat into the tyre, and they will work for a little bit of time whilst the track is getting soaked, but they will hit a plateau where they lose temperature, and the car then becomes like it's driving on ice, and the driver's feel for it is so hard to do. I mean, they're still going quicker than you would expect them to do on cold slicks, but give it another lap and they will be slithering around terribly.
Jake Hill is now 10 seconds clear of Andrew Watson, as here is Aaron Taylor-Smith going ahead of Rob Huff. So Jake Hill is not only the on-the-road leader, he is the leader on corrected time. Bobby Thompson's 10 seconds are going to drop him a long, long way back, relatively at the moment. But Jake Hill has cleared the 10-second penalty, and the way that he's going, he can still build on that. This is a really impressive drive.
That's Adam Morgan, who's come out of the pits on wets behind him, so he's not in a 2nd place on the road as it looks. But no, yeah, a very impressive drive by Jake. He was told of his penalty and has got his foot down and pulled out the gap. Fair play to him.
And this is the reaction from Dad with the blue cap, Simon Hill, Jake's father, saying that he's managed to pull that now and is 10 seconds ahead. The irony of having a race 1 and a race 2 win and being the same driver yet again will not be lost on Alan Gow after all he's done to try and tweak the regulations. Dan Rowbottom for the pit lane. He'd gone on to slicks, hadn't he? But he's now coming back in, presumably to go on to wets, because he's been another one served a googly really by the change of weather once again. That said, it's starting to brighten up again over here.
Yeah, but look how wet it is. and what you don't want to do is crash the car.
No.
You don't want to crash the car on slicks because you've pushed too hard and lost it, or the track conditions have changed since the last. I mean, that's really wet now. So, yeah, the slick shod guys, you know, they've got to come in, or they've got to tiptoe round.
So, Jake Hill, what a drive. I mean, he looked good in qualifying. He looked very impressive in race 1. He's looking awesome right now as, again, he goes for the wetter part of the road, looking after the Goodyear rubber, goes across the timing line and puts 8 of 12 laps in the book. He puts a lap on Dan Rowbottom as well. And we wait and we wait and we wait for Andrew Watson to come by in the second place Toyota. This is how the championship would be. Ash Sutton ahead of Jake Hill by just 8 points. Colin Turkington would be third. Right, the lead gap is 11.8 seconds. So not only has Jake cleared the 10 penalty, but he's also building the margin anyway. Camish is still third. Thompson is fourth on the road, but he's going to drop to the bottom end of the top 10. Josh Cook is behind him and lapping a fraction faster. Cookie has got to make up a second and a half to get past Thompson on the road, but he'll get ahead on corrected times anyway. Now this is on board with Josh Cook, who goes for the impecunious route of just one wiper, and it's on his side of the car, so you can see all the water on the other, but it doesn't matter for Josh. He can see exactly what he needs to, and he's focusing now on the BMW ahead. Andrew Watson has been given a driving standards flag as well for track limit abuses, so he's got to be mindful, as again Thompson closes on Camish at Agostini, and there is Cook catching the pair.
Well, that championship points table is going to look a lot better in the Jake Hill camp, isn't it? He came into this some 36 odd points, I think, behind. That's going to really, really help him.
Race leaders are on lap number 9, and Bobby Thompson still can't find a way past Dan Camish. We've not really touched on Dan too much today because he's been there or thereabouts, but this is a really good, solid defence of third place. He is the one Ford driver for Napa Racing up there, if you like, representing the team, because Ash Sutton's down in 16th on the slick tyre. Rowbottom has pitted to go back onto the wets. Sam Osborne is down in 9th, and Dan Camish is doing remarkable things, and that is Sutton going off the road. When was the last time we said that? He survives the experience down at Riches, but Ash has a little aberration. He's back on track, but this is going to be the first time he's not been on the podium all year, and not on the racetrack is Andrew Watson, who throws away second place to Camish, and third to Thompson, and fourth to Cook. And he's still losing places as he gets back on the road, but it's got wetter on that part of the circuit out of the S's. Andrew Watson caught out, and this is how it looked.
He just came in with a bit too much speed, lost the rear of the brakes, got launched over that curve, and he's on wets, remember. He's in second place on wets.
And there it is for another angle, but it hits the curb, really unsettles the car, fires it out towards the boonies. And Andrew Watson, then having gone bush, gets back on track. Jake Hill, though, just coping with all of this like a master, and he now leads Dan Camish by gulp, 14.7 seconds.
Yeah, that's just helped his little cause, hasn't it? Increasing that gap even further. So he has a net 4.7 second lead. Sutton's off again. Has he hit the tyres?
Looks like he has.
And this is exactly what I feared by staying out on slicks. You risk crashing the car.
Ash Sutton off the road, and it was at Williams, and he's off, and he's just a passenger on the wet grass, and kaboom, into the wall, damages the left-hand side of the car. He'll try and limp it back, but he's out of the points anyway now, so there's not that much to really persevere for.
No, that's why the Adam Morgans and Dan Rowbottoms decided to pit and put wets on, because it was either carry on out of the points and risk crashing, or just retire. But we're back here with Huff and Smiley, who've been actually in exactly the same distance between them all the way through, and they're in 13th and 14th places.
And second and third, if you like, in class, the class being for those on the slick tyre, which is being led by Aaron Taylor-Smith. We've got less than 3 laps to go. Hill, Camish, Thompson, Cook, Chilton, Doble, the top 6. Andrew Watson was 7th after his dramas at the S's, ahead of Moffat, Osborne and Darrell de Leon, rounding out the top 10. 11th is Scott Sumpton, and then it's Aaron Taylor-Smith ahead of Huff, Smiley, Ingram and Turkington it will be next of those on the slicks.
And remember, we have the reverse grid, anything between 6th and 12th for pole position for race 3. So currently holding that 12th place is Taylor Smith, so at least he's still in with a shout of reverse grid.
And he gets the point for the fastest lap. Because now that the track has got slower again, that looks like it's going to stand to the end. So currently we're on lap 10. Jake Hill's not that far off coming up and crossing the line as you look at the Toyota of Andrew Watson down in 7th after its moment at the S's. And he's trying to catch back up onto the tail of Mikey Doble. Now, meantime, here, you've got for 4th place Josh Cook about to emerge from behind the graphic there, being chased by Tom Chilton. 4th and 5th they are, and it's a second and a half between those two. So through goes the Hyundai. Then you've got Mikey Doble going by, Andrew Watson goes by, Aidan Moffat up to 8th ahead of Ronan Pearson, but he's a lap down. He's made a pit stop, and that is Sam Osborne. So he's going to now be in 9th place, chasing Aidan Moffat, but Ronan Pearson, Brands Hatch winner, a lap down between them. And we have Dewey into the pit lane, Ash Sutton. Yes, he is, he's in. So Sutton's going on to wets and will go back out. So Ash Sutton started his race in the pits, and he has just left the pits again as the field then turns out of the Wilson hairpin. Currently, we are on lap 11, 1 to go at the end of this, and Jake Hill's drive has just been tremendous. He's not put a wheel wrong. He has dominated. To lead by 15 seconds is quite something, but I know he had to do it because of the penalty, but that's just a huge margin in testing conditions.
It is, and bearing in mind the others are actually on the same tyre behind him. The next 10 cars all on the same tyre. He's just absolutely in the zone, Jake, this weekend, isn't he? And I mean, given some weather conditions and perhaps only say 6 cars being reversed from race 3, he could win all 3.
Could indeed, which would be quite something. Only been done twice before.
The hybrid benefit of extra laps of hybrid is hardly material in these conditions, even though it does help with lap times and passing. It really is more about grip and balance and drivability and driver confidence in the car than it is about having a bit of extra hybrid.
Yeah, don't forget Jake Hill only has 1 lap of hybrid use available to him as the race 1 winner. He's not used it yet. He doesn't need to. I mean, he's done all of this on merit and by skill.
Exactly, and that sort of backs up my point. In fact, in race 1, he only used 2 of his 4 hybrid laps anyway.
So this BMW, which has, as you made the point earlier on in the day, really clicked, and so has Jake with Snetterton this weekend. He's got 1 more lap to go, goes through onto his final lap despite the conditions. No safety car needed. The driving standards largely have been very impressive. We've not had that many cars going off the road, and those that have always been able to continue. That's Dan Rowbottom a lap down out of the points. That's Adam Morgan a lap down out of the points. That's Camish 2nd and Bobby Thompson 3rd on the road, but behind Josh Cook, remember, is going to be elevated to the podium because of Thompson's penalty.
Yeah, it's a fine drive by Josh Cook. In fact, fine drive by everyone who's stayed on the track, in my opinion.
And Mikey Doble just going through 6th. He's on for another independence win for the Evans Halshaw Power Max Racing team. I think they've won all of them so far this year, I'm right in saying. This is the first time this year that Ash Sutton will not finish on the podium, and the podium is set to be Hill, Camish, Cook. As you look at the race leader, the conditions have eased a touch for him on this last lap, but has there been a better drive by Jake Hill? This, meantime, is Huff versus Smiley. Chris has finally caught up to the Toyota. The Cupra gets up the inside, and is Smiley going to make that move into Coram? He's going to think about it, but Huff on the outside will have the grip, and he comes out ahead.
Yeah, great to see them racing, though, and big slide. These guys doing so well on slicks. I can't tell you how difficult that is.
So they're a long way back on the race leader, Jake Hill. Just reflect on this drive by Jake. It has been outstanding, hasn't it?
It really has been outstanding. A fine drive. Such a contrast this weekend to his weekend at Brands. You really you wouldn't think it was the same car driver, but that is the difference between getting the car in the sweet spot. And it does sort of point to the fact that BMW has a narrow window of operating at its peak, because Turkington, who was on fire at Brands, is struggling here.
So this is for 2nd on the road, Bobby Thompson, remember, is going to be hit by that penalty for the false start, and 10 seconds will drop him down the order. But Jake Hill is about to come then up towards his career win number 14, his second of the day, to continue this trend this year of the race 1 and race 2 winners being the same. But if there's been a better drive by Jake Hill, I can't remember it. This has been an outstanding performance. Jake Hill wins again at Snetterton. A fantastic drive. Jake Hill dominates race 2 of the day. Second, and a distant second, should be Dan Camish, but he's yet to come out of the last corner at turn 12. He's yet to come up towards the timing line. He'll bank some points. Dan Camish takes second, and then across the line, third on the road is Bobby Thompson, but Josh Cook takes third on corrected time. Tom Chilton takes fourth on corrected time. Mikey Doble fifth, Andrew Watson sixth, and seventh or eighth for Bobby Thompson. The clock ticks. Seventh is where he finishes. Aidan Moffat for eighth, Sam Osborne ninth, and Daryl De Leon will round out the top 10. So, take the penalty into account. The winning margin was a mere 6.2 seconds, but in the BTCC, that's a huge margin. The win in the slick class should go the way of Aaron Taylor-Smith. He's on his way towards the line. Huff has fended off Chris Smiley. He's got to do, he's off again. So for the second time in the race, Rob has a moment. He's back on the road, he's off the road. Smiley is going to get up the inside, is he? Is he? Yes, he's done it. And Rob Huff rally crossing his way back onto the circuit. Well, he said on the grid it was worth a roll of the dice. He didn't know what the weather was going to do. There are so many different interpretations of the weather app today. It was worth a go. It didn't work. And at the end of all of that, it is Jake Hill, Dan Camish and Josh Cook, the top three, after a really lively race.
Yeah, well, had it not rained, you might have been looking at the winner between one of these two, but sadly it wasn't to be. And you can't predict what the weather will do. You have to go by what the weather is at the moment, and they did exactly that. You know, the wet shot guys would have all looked silly had it all dried out and they'd have come through, but that's the way it goes, and fair play to them for risking it and racing all the way to the end. But that is one happy Jake Hill, and who didn't use any of his hybrid.
No, just an absolutely stunning performance that by Jake Hill. Brilliant drive, and to overcome his jump start penalty as well. Thumbs up. So the drivers make their way down toward the S's, where the bedraggled Snetterton crowd will applaud, no doubt. And Jake Hill is the winner of round 8, career win 14, and that gives him a real boost in the championship. It's going to be a fascinating third race. Heaven knows what the weather is going to do, or what the grid is going to be, or what tyres are left. I mean, it's going to be a real lottery, and it's going to be well worth staying to watch, because it will promise to be drama all the way. For round 8 of the championship, it's another win for Jake Hill. Dan Camish second, and Josh Cook elevated to third with a penalty for Bobby Thompson. Tom Chilton taking fourth ahead of Mikey Doble, the independent winner. Andrew Watson after his big moment at the S's sixth. Bobby Thompson seventh. Aidan Moffat, Sam Osborne and Daryl De Leon rounding out the top 10. Scott Sumton, 11th, ahead of Aaron Taylor-Smith, the best of those on the slick tyre, ahead of Chris Smiley and Rob Huff. Colin Turkington was the last point scorer, ahead of Tom Ingram, Dan Rowbottom, Adam Morgan, then Ronan Pearson, and having been in the barriers, Ash Sutton in 20th place, and just the 20 starters, but they all made it to the end. As far as the championship is concerned, that now makes life very interesting indeed, because Ash Sutton has an 8-point cushion over Colin Turkington and Jake Hill, joint second now. Tom Ingram is fourth, ahead of Dan Camish. Josh Cook sixth, ahead of Tom Chilton. Then Aidan Moffat, Andrew Watson ninth, and the top 10 rounded out by Dan Rowbottom.
Climax of the day at Snetterton, the reverse grid race, round 9 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. Sam Osborne with his first ever touring car pole position. We're back with our commentators Tim Harvey and David Addison.
The grid is formed, the sun is shining, it's a dry road in places, it's a wet road in places, there's the mix of tyres, we've even got people on wets, and it's the last race of the day, and it's a reverse grid. What's not to love?
Exactly, and don't ask me to predict a win round this one, but I think if I was starting this race, I'd want to be on that soft tyre at the front, which is exactly what our two guys on the front have got. Aidan Moffat, already a race winner, obviously, in second, and Sam Osborne, his first pole position. He'll be feeling the pressure.
So formation lap underway then. Everybody making their way off the grid. 1 or 2 a little bit slow to get away. There's a bit of a bottleneck. You'll see there as one car has struggled away. It's one of the lower placed Hyundais on the grid. Might have been Tom Ingram's car, but everybody is away and moving. You've got, of course, at the very back of the grid, Ash Sutton. He's going to be a man to watch. But let's look at that grid. Sam Osborne is on pole position and Aidan Moffat with him at the front. They are both on the soft tyre. Bobby Thompson on the hard tyre starts next, and Andrew Watson on wets, we understand, 4th on the grid. Big gamble. 5th, Mikey Doble. Tom Chilton starts 6th ahead of Josh Cook and then Dan Camish. On the 5th row of the grid, you've got Jake Hill, 2 wins to his name, and Darrell De Leon lining up alongside. Then Scott Thompson, he's another one on the softs. Aaron Taylor-Smith comes next ahead of Chris Smiley and Rob Huff. Colin Turkington is on the 8th row with Tom Ingram for company. And then after the Hyundai, Dan Rowbottom and Adam Morgan, with Ronan Pearson and Ash Sutton rounding out the grid. No Nick Halstead on the grid, nor was he there for race 2. And here we go. Last couple of cars into place. Adam Morgan will line up 18th and Ash Sutton last on the grid. Haven't said that before, I don't think. I'll say it again. Yeah. Ash Sutton last on the grid. There you go.
Napper at the front, Napper at the back.
Absolutely. Bookending the grid. Ash Sutton with work to do. A 3rd and a 20th. His result. Sam Osborne with a 16th and a 9th today. And a 21st and an 8th for Aidan Moffat, the man with him at the front of the grid. The grid is formed. Almost. Ash Sutton creeps into place. Green flag shows everybody is back. That means that everybody now can look towards the lighting gantry. Round 9 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship is go. Bit of wheel spin from Sam Osborne, but he outtracks Aidan Moffat. Bobby Thompson tries to switch sides. Good getaway by Andrew Watson. A demon start, though, by Josh Cook.
And Jake Hill on wets, absolutely storming around the outside. He only just found room. Look at him, sweeping around the outside on those wets.
Sam Osborne's sideways. Big cloud of smoke. He's still sideways. He's gone bush all over the weeds on the outside of the road. And that was the pole position car that's going to get back onto the circuit way down, but everybody missed him.
And he won't be the last person to go off on slicks in the wet, I predict that.
So Aidan Moffat is now the leader from Bobby Thompson, and then on wet tyres, Jake Hill in 3rd place. Look at the lead that Moffat has got while everybody else was avoiding an errant Osborne. Here he comes down towards Agostini. Hill on a dry part of the circuit, bit of spray being generated, goes to the inside of his teammate, moves through on the inside line. Thompson 3rd, Cook on the inside 4th. Andrew Watson, remember, he is 5th, and he went to the grid on wets as well.
Yeah, but don't forget Thompson's on those hard tyres, which just don't heat up quick enough.
Darrell De Leon sideways, and I think he's tagged Chris Smiley in the background. Smiley's car goes off the road, and damage, and big damage, and that could well neutralise the race, because look at the broken front left corner. That is a real kick in the whatsits for Restart Racing. That car's had good pace today, and contact on the opening lap of the race. Smiley's out, no question.
Yeah, he's trying to move the car, actually, with only one driving wheel, so we'll see if he manages to do that. The guys at the front weaving panically, trying to get heat into the tyres. Meanwhile, Hill steams along on the inside on the wet. He doesn't care, but a safety car is not what Hill wants, because it'll just continue to dry the track out.
And I think we might be heading that way, because the safety car boards are being picked up by the officials opposite us. Jake Hill might be in the lead by the end of the lap, because he's right there on the tail. Door opens, he just glides up the inside on the wet tyres on this wetter part of the track. This is ideal for him, but he wants the race to carry on.
Candy from a baby at the moment, but it may be a full storm, because I do think with the safety car out, if it gets called, and I think I saw Bobby Thompson go straight across the grass at the S's as well at the end of the first lap.
May well be right, because he certainly dropped back. So Jake Hill is in the lead from Andrew Watson. It's the 2 wet-shod cars in the top 2 places. Hill goes through, no call yet for a safety car, so the race is live, the race is pure. It is Hill from Watson, and in 3rd place across the timing line then is Aidan Moffat. Replay of Sam Osborne's big lose at the start. Jake Hill came within an ace of clobbering him.
Yeah, he did well to save it, Sam. Yeah. He sort of planted his foot to bring the front round, but all it did was drag it all the way around and off the track. That probably did him a favour to get him out of harm's way. That was Josh Cook's view, and there Bobby Thompson being forced out wide. Now there, look, contact. That was Huff into De Leon and De Leon into Smiley, but it was Huffy that triggered all that. Yeah, but he had a car on his left forcing him. He had nowhere to go. It's Pearson in the Hyundai. See, Huff hasn't got anywhere to go. So Chris Smiley is the driver that comes off worse. Right, so busy first lap.
and it is Jake Hill in the lead of the race then. It was a second and a half, the advantage at the end of the opening lap. Still there is blue sky across the middle of the circuit. It's a bit grey over turn 1, and Jake Hill is trying to build the lead. Now, could he do 3 in a day? Only 2 drivers, Dan Eaves and Jason Plato, have done it before. It's a big ask in the conditions as they're drying, but you never know.
Well, at least he gets the point for leading.
That's true.
He gets that, and he'll probably have fastest lap for a little while as well, but he's going to have to try ever so hard to look after those wet tyres on the dry part of the track and get them as wet as possible. He'll be seeking out the very edges of the track to keep them wet.
Now there, further back, is Rob Huff making his way through traffic. This is where it is wet. This is where the drivers on slicks have got to really work hard. Bobby Thompson there trying to recover. He was way back after his dramas earlier on in the race, and he's a little bit slow coming off the S's. That's Huff ahead of Ingram then, as they turn their way up out of bomb hole. So lap 2 we are on, 12-lap race into Coram. Comes the Toyota ahead of the Hyundai.
Yeah, those on the hard tyre are really struggling to get the temperature in them, and then when they get to the wet parts of the track, because they've got less temperature in them, they've got even less grip. So round the S's and the bomb hole and Coram, the likes of Thompson and Camish really struggling.
Replay of Josh Cook having a big moment, and then behind him Aaron Taylor Smoke. Mikey Doble having an even bigger moment. Mikey Doble all crossed up, and this is how Tom Chilton saw life going through that fast right of Riches. He was a little bit sideways as well. It was Cook ahead who corrected it, but then behind him Mikey Doble having his big moment. Lead gap 2.6 seconds. Jake Hill's fastest lap is a 2 minutes 8, and the best of those that are on slicks is currently a 2:12.
Well, Mikey Doble said he had to get his big boy pants on for this race. Well, I think we know what colour they are now, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Code Brown and Mikey Doble. Right, a bit of damage you saw on Darrell De Leon's car. Colin Turkington is still fighting on as well. That is Dan Camish ahead of him. That means it's a switch of pace. Camish is up to 12 at the expense of Turkington, who's had a tough day.
He has had a tough day. And Sutton from the very back is up to 9th.
Already, after 2 laps, yes,
yeah.
Flying. So Camish, Turkington, then the recovering Doble, and Scott Sumpton next in the queue. Scott was saying pre-race he desperately wanted it to be dry. Chris Smiley wanted it to be wet. Chris, we've lost his car parked by the side of the road, and the road is clear, therefore, once again. Right, absolute best sector 1 time. Rob Huff on the soft tyre.
Yeah, at the moment the fast lap at 2:08.9 from the leader Hill on wets, but it looks like that's about to change, doesn't it? I think the slick shot guy, and this is early in the race, obviously. We're only on lap 3, so if the slick shot cars are now quicker, I think the gap that Hill and Watson have, which is effectively 6 seconds over Moffat, the first of the soft tyre, it won't be enough.
There's Huff then, who comes towards us on the tail of Chilton. They raced against each other in the World Touring Car Championship. Now they're doing it in the British. And of course Rob Huff, whose last touring car win in the British Championship was here 20 years ago. 6th place on the back of Chilton. They're both on the soft, so evenly matched in terms of tyres. But is this going to be a Hyundai friendly track or a Toyota friendly one? We'll find out as the race leader Jake Hill has just gone storming over the line. Right, his lap 2 minutes 9, so he's going slower fractionally. Watson behind him 4/10 slower than he was doing earlier on, and we'll see who gets the fastest lap of the race if it changes on this lap. So far it's to this man, Jake Hill. It's not only the point that's of interest and relevance for the fastest lap, it is whether the pendulum is swinging totally in favour of those on the slick tyre. It hasn't happened yet.
Not on this lap, but Huff matched the Hill's time exactly to the 10th.
And that's Dan Rowbottom, who has become slow bottom by the look of it, because that car is not at proper pace, is it? What's happened to Rowbottom? He's crawling round.
The right front is
He's got a puncture, hasn't he?
It's a definite puncture, but it looks like damage as well.
Let's have a look. And yes, so he's heading for the pit lane. A really disappointing weekend for Robo this has been. He was struggling for balance in qualifying, and race day hasn't really improved. Now, does this tell us any more of the story? Darrell De Leon ahead, and a bit of debris on the road.
Thompson coming through.
Yeah.
I think it could have been the debris.
Possibly so. As Jake Hill continues to lead, 4 seconds ahead of Andrew Watson, 8 seconds ahead of Aidan Moffat, who is the leading driver on slicks.
Absolute best in the first sector for Rob Huff.
Okay, who is 13.9 seconds back on the leader, but he's also got cars on the same type of tyre to get through.
Yeah, he has the 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th cars all on the soft tyres.
Sam Osborne after his big lose down in 17th place. Rowbottom is in the pits with that puncture and the damage. And there you've got that last lap comparison between Hill and Moffat.
But Moffat isn't the quickest slick shot car.
No.
So he may be the first in line in third place, but he's not the quickest, as we see Bobby Thompson having yet another moment in the damp.
On that hard tyre, which he was hoping would look after him. But Jake Hill, giving up the hard tyre to go onto the wet, leads the way. Battle on there. Look, Dan Camish goes through. Rowbottom's just rejoined the race in his Napa Ford. So the race order, there's the leader. That is Jake Hill. 4 laps of 12 are now done. Second, it is Andrew Watson as Rowbottom slots in into a notional second on the road by the lap down. Third is Josh Cook. No, it's not. Third is Aidan Moffat, forgive me. And fourth is Josh Cook. And then fifth is Rob Huff. So the Toyotas starting to queue up together. In 6th place, it's Tom Chilton. In 7th place, it is Ingram. 8th is Ash Sutton. 9th, Daryl De Leon. And the fastest lap of the race now, Rob Huff. And that was a 2 minutes 6.8 as against a 2 minutes 9 for Jake Hill. Right, it's advantage those on slicks right now.
And if it's 3 seconds a lap quicker now, that'll only get more bigger and bigger, that speed differential, because the wets will get slower and the slicks will get quicker.
And not only that, but Huffy is much the quicker of those that are on slick. So he's closing demonstrably on Josh Cook and also on Aidan Moffat. He's quicker than the two ahead of him, never mind the two that are on wets. Getting a replay here. Colin Turkington, Dan Camish ahead of him.
Wheel spin, power oversteer, wheel spin off the corner, but he still manages to get enough drive off the corner to get past Camish, doesn't he?
He does indeed, and therefore move himself up into 11th place with Camish on the hard, Turkington on the medium tyre. Right, you can see how much sunnier and brighter it is at the moment here at Snetterton, and the cars first and second are on a deteriorating wet tyre. The amount of wet racetrack is diminishing. Very little left,
if at all, really. Just the next couple of corners at the end of the Bentley Straight into Nelson and Brundle Nelson. That's the only wet bit.
This is Turkington on Thompson, and he's going to go round the outside under braking, and Colin Turkington picks up a place, goes through then, gains track position, and that puts him into the top 10 now. 10th place for Turkington, as here Jake Hill in replay and Andrew Watson battles with Aidan Moffat. But remember, Watson is on that wet tyre, and a slick shot car goes ahead of him, and Andrew Watson is certainly under attack. Cook comes up towards the line, and he in turn has got Rob Huff alongside him, so there's going to be a big shuffle of the Toyotas before long. It's still Hill in the lead, but 7.5 seconds the margin now. There, Cook on the inside, Huff on the outside, and Cookie stands his ground. They might be under the same umbrella team, but it's every man for himself.
Very much so, yeah. 4 Toyotas all together there. They don't want any damage out of this one.
Huff on the inside, Cook on the outside. Huff makes it stick, goes through. And remember, they're both on the soft, so Rob Huff making his work, but Cook comes back on the inside into turn 3 and he retakes the place. So 1 up and 1 back for Rob Huff. Josh Cook goes by, but they're both reeling in Andrew Watson, who is now struggling on the wet. And to the inside line goes Cook. He's going to pick up the place. Can Huff get through as well as they get to Agostini? The answer is yes. Andrew Watson sensibly gives them racing room, and Huff into the back of his teammate. Come on, Josh, hurry up, he says.
Huff's trying to make as much progress as quickly as possible. Watson very sensibly didn't put up any kind of a fight. He knows that the game is over, shall we say, for the wets.
Still Hill leads the way, but Moffat trying to hunt him down, as there is Moffat. Rowbottom, the kind of spoiler in the pack, in that he's a lap adrift after his puncture and the pit stop that ensued. So Hill, Moffat, and then it is Cook and Huff as they come through. Josh having gone back ahead on this lap. Huff, remember, has that point for the fastest lap of the race at the moment. We're on lap 6 out of 12.
In fairness to Jake Hill, he's done a good job, because he did build up a 7.5 second lead, but with the likes of Huff and Cook lapping a couple, 2 or 3 seconds quicker, that will soon be eradicated.
And then the question is where he's going to drop to if it stays dry, if we get no more rain. Dan Rowbottom lets the quicker cars go by, as Andrew Watson's car from earlier on the lap was overtaken, and that was Huff in the back of Cook.
Yeah, that was just a difference of line. Cook was stopping, V'ing the corner, getting it stopped, and the steering lock off to accelerate out, and Huff was just carrying a bit more mid-corner speed. Here we are, Hill driving up the left-hand side, trying to pick up some cool water on his tyres.
And interestingly, he went quicker on that lap than he did on the previous one. That lap was only 13 thousandths slower than his absolute best.
Yeah, it was an 8.9, call it 9 flat. The others still doing 7s though. Cookie in the 7s, Huff in the 7s. So that gap is coming down. It's 7 seconds at the moment.
But then the 3 behind all want to win. They all want track position. They're all squabbling.
Yeah, they should work together to catch Hill first, really.
They should.
Yeah,
they should.
But they also want Toyota bragging rights.
They do indeed. Aidan Moffat is the only one out of the Toyota stable that's had a win this year, as he's quite keen to remind Josh Cook. Josh wants to win. Rob Huff wants to win. I'm afraid we can discount Andrew Watson. His car on the wets has really lost the edge quicker, hasn't it, or sooner rather, than Jake Hill's car on the wets.
Yeah, shall I tell you who was the quickest on the last lap though? Ash Sutton. He was in the 6s.
And he's in 8th place.
Yeah.
So still charging along. There he is. So Ash Sutton is 16 seconds off the front of the pack. We've still got 5.5 laps to go, and he wriggles his way now up through Oggies on towards Williams and then towards Bentley Straight. Through shot then goes Tom Ingram and Tom Chilton. What happened to Chilton in this race? He is in 7th place. Bobby Thompson persevering. 11th on the hard tyre, and Huff again on Cook, tries to go around the outside. Josh doesn't give him a lot of room. Huffy all over the grass.
He won't like that one bit, no. I don't think.
He's gained the place, but sensibly gives it back because he gained an advantage by being off the road. But yes, could be an interesting debrief.
Yeah, and he hasn't, hopefully he hasn't filled his radiator with grass, but that otherwise it could be overheating.
Well, he has got a lot of grass, and he is ahead of Josh Cook now, so having given the place back, he's gone back ahead, and all of a sudden Huff not only moves ahead of Cook, but he's right on the tail of Aidan Moffat. So Rob Huff's pace at the moment is fantastic. You can see that because he's carved his way up the field, and look how much closer they are to Jake Hill. Last time the lead BMW was 6.9 seconds ahead of Aidan Moffat, and this time 4.8, with another best lap of the race to Rob Huff. And his is the Toyota with the small field in the front of it.
Yeah, but quickest lap because he went straight on at the S's and didn't lift off.
But I don't think there's any way of taking that out of the system, so it'll, for the moment at least, stand. Whether anybody goes quicker, we'll find out in a legit way. Right, there's Jake Hill, and now he's on borrowed time. We do have a new fastest lap, sorry, it's Colin Turkington.
Ah, there you go, in the 5s now. But Jake has hung on very well. It's only a case of how far he slips back.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they're 10 seconds a lap quicker, is it?
No, indeed. And Aidan Moffat is still hanging on in there with Huff 3rd, 4th Cook. So it could well be, in the end, a Toyota 1, 2, 3. But Jake Hill ain't going to give up without a fight, that is for sure.
Yeah.
We are on lap 8 out of 12.
Well, I don't think Hill is going to win this race, but he's still going to get, I think, some good points because the field's spread out a lot, hasn't it?
And he's looking after those tyres as best he can. But then you've got this inter-Nissan battle going on behind. The 3 Toyotas then of Moffat, Huff and Cook. Although Cookie is just dropping back a fraction, isn't he?
I thought they were Toyotas, not Nissans.
I think you're allowed to say things like that. Right, on this lap we could well have a new race leader, couldn't we? Jake Hill has now been reeled in. The car squirms a little bit. At least here he's on the wetter part of the racetrack, but the gap has absolutely gone out of the window.
Yeah, the overtake will come on the start-finish line. I'm pretty sure of it when they come out of the final corner and up the start-finish line.
But will it
actually, they've lost a lot of ground there on the wet part, haven't they?
Yeah, but big slide by Moffat, and it's all got crossed up, so Huff goes through. Moffat saves the slide, but that should bring Josh Cook a little bit closer to him. So contact avoided, but it was a big slide for Aidan Moffat, and he has got Cook right on his tail. Well, the overtake for the lead isn't going to come on the pit straight, because now Jake Hill, by using the wets on that wetter part of the road, again, he's on borrowed time, but he does still lead. 8 laps in the book, 1.7 seconds. Huff now has the fastest lap, but he used all of the tarmac that time. In 3rd place it's Moffat, 4th is Cook, 5th is Tom Ingram, who's lapping quicker than a couple ahead of him. Here's the replay. So Moffat moves across, tries to take the line, and then the back just breaks.
Yeah, it just tightens the line a bit, and that overloads the outside rear tyre. But now we're into the dry section of the track. I don't think Hill will be able to survive another lap on this section. We'll see, but it's hard work. Look at the pace of Huff as they go mid-corner. Here he comes.
And this is for the race lead, and 20 years after his last British Touring Car Championship win, which came at Snetterton, Rob Huff leads and could be on for another victory. He's been a long break in between those wins, 20 years. It's probably a record in itself, isn't it? Back to the gap between wins, and now the floodgates have opened. Jake Hill is being passed by Moffat and by Cook, or is he? They were trying to get alongside him, and one has got him, not quite two, but it's about to be two. Moffat second, and Cook now goes through for third.
Well, he might overtake one of them on the wet bit when they get round the other side circuit, but what a story it would be for Rob Huff if he could bookend 20 years of BTCC with another win at Snetterton. That would be fantastic.
So after a 20-year absence from the top step of a British Touring Car Championship podium, we're better than his home track, because he's from Cambridge originally. Rob Huff leads the way. Now, is he going to be able to be caught by either of his Toyota brand mates behind? Seemingly not, because he's already picked his way up to them and then passed and has pulled away. All he's got to do now, is bring it home. It's still a tricky track surface, but for second place, Cook wants to get ahead of Moffat, doesn't he?
He very much does. He's making that inside line work very well, is Josh Cook. This could be a first for Speedworks as well, an all-podium for Speedworks if they can finish 1, 2, 3.
It seems rather unfair that Team Principal Christian Dick is not here to see it, but we have also got to get them across the line yet, because the leaders go through 3 laps to go, side by side for second. Moffat on the inside, Cook on the outside. The other one to keep an eye to is Tom Ingram, because he's lapping in the 4s, Huff in the 3s last time, but Moffat, Cook and Hill not lapping as quickly as the flying Tom Ingram in 5th place. He might yet reign on the Toyota parade.
Good point. I mean, these two Toyotas fighting it out, Moffat and Cook. They're allowing 2 things to happen: Huff to get away and Ingram to catch them.
Exactly right. So Jake Hill on this part of the circuit, he's going to struggle. I mean, look, it's like a smaller engine car, isn't it, in a sense, because the Hyundai is demonstrably quicker. Round the outside goes Tom Ingram. Job done on the outside line into Agostini. That puts him 4th, and now he's got those 2 grey and yellow Toyotas up the road. He's not going to catch them instantly, but he is charging and he is lapping quicker.
Yeah, not only can you have greater mid-corner speed on the slicks, you also can brake a lot later. And you saw that into Agostini. Ingram miles later on the brakes than Jake Hill, because the worn-out wet tyres just don't afford the friction and the retardation that you need.
So there is Ingram onto Bentley Straight. All of those Toyotas, a car he knows pretty well. He was the original driver of the Corolla, up the road. So Rob Huff leads. He was the fastest man on the track last time at 2 minutes 3, and the 2 Toyotas behind in the 2 minute 5s. Jake Hill, we know, he's dropping back. He's into the clutches of the traffic now. Ash Sutton's going to gain another place therefore before the end. And that's Scott Thompson going through a little bit further back. Colin Turkington goes through as well. So there's still quite a lot, I think, that can shake out before the end of this race. This is Josh Cook's view. Aidan Moffat still ahead. That's Tom Ingram is closing fast.
But Moffat has been using his hybrid. Of course, he had more laps use of hybrid. He had 8 laps towards, as opposed to Cook's 3. And he's been using it on this lap to defend, to pull out a bit of a gap.
And Huff has been using his. He's down to 1 lap now, isn't he? So Rob Huff, who has come up from 14th on the grid as well, bear in mind, leads the way. And Ingram, fastest lap of the race now. So Tom Ingram is 5 seconds off Rob Huff. He's lapping quicker, but he's got more traffic to get through, and he's only got 2 laps in which to do it. So he's not going to win the race unless there's a drama for Huff. And there, Rowbottom a lap down, tries to go around the outside of Jake Hill, gets run off the road, and Robo's rather miserable day at the office gets no better.
No, it doesn't.
Right, so Ingram, still, as I say, the fastest man on track. Jake Hill here is coming under attack from Tom Chilton. Jake's still in 5th place, whereas Andrew Watson has tumbled all the way down to 14th.
Yeah, but he's going to lose a couple more places here, but that's still good point scoring for Jake Hill. It wasn't such a bad decision at the end of the day. He wasn't going to win in the race, but it wasn't such a bad decision. Where's Sutton? Yeah, oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, says Sutton, as Jake Hill tries to fight it out with Ingram. Oh, little touch.
It was with Chilton. Chilton made the move on one side, and as the door opened, Sutton got through on the other. So actually, although Chilton has gained a place, he's lost one at the same time, and Sutton the big winner, 2 places gained, ever the opportunist. So 20th on the grid, Ash Sutton now is up into 5th place as Hill and Rowbottom carry on their battle on the road, even though they're on different laps of the race. Right, well, we've got one more to run at the end of this. Ingram, fastest lap of the race. He's 1.9 seconds back from Josh Cook, and they're heading down towards the S's. Ash Sutton and Tom Chilton still tied together.
Yeah, of course, Ingram is the other Hyundai up the road. He's in 4th place. Back on board with Tom Chilton in this fight with Ash Sutton on the wetter part of the track. But Ingram is a good distance up the road, but is he catching Cook? That's what we'll see across the line as up the inside fights back Chilton. Now it's a drag race. Who will use a bit of hybrid up the start-finish lap as they all start their final lap?
So Rob Huff leads Aidan Moffat by 2 seconds. Josh Cook 1.3 seconds up the road from Tom Ingram, who's done another fastest lap. And this is for 5th. It's Sutton on the inside. It's Chilton on the outside line. And through goes then Ash Sutton. He makes that place stick. So from 20th to 5th. Chilton's not giving up without a fight, admittedly. But Ash Sutton hangs on to the place for the moment. But up front, it is Rob Huff leading the way. He's 2 seconds to the good. And it is going to be seemingly a win for Toyota Gazoo Racing UK. And after a 20-year absence from the top step of the podium and at his home circuit, everything aligns, doesn't it, for Rob Huff?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Great drive. He's, he's fended off. There have been times early in this year where he hasn't had the race pace of his Toyota colleagues, but BTCC is a learning curve, even if you've all the experience in a world champion like Rob Huff is, and he's now really getting on top of it. This is a great drive.
But is it going to be a Speedworks Motorsport lockout for the podium? At the moment, the answer is yes. It's a 1-2-3, but Ingram, 1.3 seconds back, is still doing absolute bests in sectors as he tries to close on Cook. I think he's going to run out of time, so it will be a Toyota domination up front. There is Ingram. Look, he's on the line. He's trying to distract Cookie. He's saying, I'm coming. Another lap maybe it will be a different story, but he's almost there. He's almost within striking distance as they come now on towards Coram.
Well, we know he's going to be very brave on this last lap through the wet section, but this man at the front, Rob Huff, can stroke it home. He can be a little bit careful through here. Just 2 corners to go.
So down he comes then towards turn 12, then up towards the checkered flag, and then to a 3rd British Touring Car Championship career win. He's won the World Championship, he's won the Scandinavian Championship. Rob Huff is going to take honours in race 3. Rob Huff wins at Snetterton. 2nd across the line is Aidan Moffat, and for 3rd it is nose to tail, but Josh Cook does it. Tom Ingram sets another fastest lap on the last lap. He was a 5th of a second behind Cook. It's a Speedworks lockout on the podium, a 1-2-3 behind Ingram. Sutton was 5th, Chilton 6th, Turkington 7th, and in 8th place Bobby Thompson, 9th Jake Hill, and Mikey Doble in 10th. And Aaron Taylor-Smith and Sam Osborne are going to have a virtual dead heat on the line by the look of it, because it's a drag race to the flag. And side by side, who's going to have the nose ahead? It was Osborne, I think, just when they came across the line. And they were tied on time to the 1000th. But TSL, the timekeeping service with their cameras, reckoned that it was Osborne ahead, but they could not split them on time.
No, what a great race. I thought it would deliver us a great result, and another winner this year in the BTCC, Rob Huff.
So he has done it on home soil. Rob's ever supportive family, particularly Peter, his father, who I think was planning on being here this weekend. I've not seen him, but he did say he was hoping to be here. We'll be absolutely delighted with that. And Rob wanting to race in the UK for myriad reasons. He's back after, well, the best part of 20 years of globetrotting, really, where he's racked up race wins and titles, but he's come back home in every sense, back to the original Touring Car Championship that launched him, and he's had a great win, and there's nowhere better than your home circuit. And with 2nd Aidan Moffat and 3rd Josh Cook, Andrew Watson on those wets ending up in 16th place, but 3 cars from the same team lock out the podium. The Cheshire-based Speedworks Motorsport team having its day of days with 1st, 2nd and 3rd. So cars making their way back to the pit lane. Let's look at the results then of round 9 of the championship. Rob Huff takes honours from Aidan Moffat and Josh Cook. Tom Ingram 4th ahead of Ash Sutton and Tom Chilton, with Colin Turkington 7th, Bobby Thompson 8th, Jake Hill 9th, and it's another independent win for Evans Hulshaw Power Max Racing. Mikey Doble this time in 10th spot. 11th Adam Morgan ahead of Darryl De Leon and then Dan Camish. Sam Osborne taking 14th and the last point, Aaron Taylor-Smith. Then Andrew Watson from Scott Sumpton, Ronan Pearson, Dan Rowbottom a lap down, and Chris Smiley didn't get to the end. So Jake Hill taking more points, banking what he could in that race, and 9th was certainly no disgrace given the tyres he was on. There he is, 2 wins and a 9th. It has been a very good day at the office for Jake Hill. Good day also for this man, Rob Huff, taking his first win of the season. Now he's got to get through the ride height. So the car stops and the roller will go to work. So as the scrutineers do their work, let's look at the championship standings. Ash Sutton 10 points ahead of Colin Turkington, and then a point back third, Tom Ingram. Jake Hill's 4th, Josh Cook 5th ahead of Dan Camish, with Aidan Moffat 7th, Tom Chilton 8th, Rob Huff's into the top 10 at 9th, and the top 10 rounded out by Adam Morgan.